Live streaming has commenced.
Good evening, councillors, officers and our viewers live streaming tonight's meeting. My name is Councillor Suzanne Newton. I'm the Mayor of Darebin City Council and the chairperson of tonight's special council meeting. It's my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's special council meeting, and I declare the meeting open at 6:08 p.m. This meeting is being held virtually and is available for the public to watch via the live stream link on Council's webpage. The meeting has been scheduled as a special council meeting pursuant to Rule 112 of the Government's Rules. Due to the circumstances, Council has given such public notice as is practicable. Council has had a number of commercial and contractual matters and a confidential item requiring Council direction, some of which have arisen. Oh, sorry, I'll read that again. There's a confidential item requiring Council direction, and some of these have arisen recently. This meeting has been called to consider 11 officer reports as listed in the agenda, and for business continuity purposes, it's necessary to resolve these matters before the scheduled ordinary meeting on 26th of August 2024. Pursuant to section 1136 of the governance rules, unless all councillors are present and unanimously agree to deal with another matter, only the business specified in the notice calling the meeting is to be transacted. Any discussions relating to confidential information under section 3(1) of the Local Government Act 2020 will require council to move into camera pursuant to section 66(2). I'll first start by acknowledging the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people, the traditional owners of the land, and I pay my respects to elders past and present, and I recognise their continuing connection to land, water and culture, and I also acknowledge my support for a treaty in Victoria. Before we commence, I would like to introduce the councillors and senior staff in attendance this evening. We have Councillor Emily Dimitriadis, Councillor Tom Hannon, Councillor Trent McCarthy, we have Councillor Julie Williams, and we have Councillor Susan Rennie. Our officers in attendance tonight are Rachel Olivier, the Acting CEO, Kylie Bennett, the General Manager Community, and Jan Piccolo, the Acting General Manager Customer and Corporate, Vanessa Petrie, the General Manager City Sustainability and Strategy, and Felicity Walsh, the Interim Manager Governance and Communications. And I would like to welcome our Municipal Monitor, Ross Millard. I have an apology from Councillor Greco, who is on a leave of absence, and we currently don't have Councillor Lawrence or Councillor Messina with us in the meeting. I'll next go to disclosures of conflict of interest. So councillors and officers, are there any conflicts of interest or interest to declare? No, okay, that's fine. So if any motion or amendment arises during the meeting that gives rise to a conflict of interest, please advise me at that time. I'll next go on to Council's occupational health and safety responsibilities. Council has an occupational health and safety responsibility to ensure anyone attending tonight's meeting feels safe, both physically and emotionally. It's great to see everyone here this evening, and I'd like to remind everyone in attendance to be respectful of each other. And as outlined in our governance rules, please note the following. A councillor or any other person who addresses the meeting must do so in a courteous and respectful manner and must take direction from the chairperson whenever called on to do so. Councillors, as this is a virtual meeting, may I please remind you of the following. Please leave your video on and mute your sound unless you wish to speak. If you do wish to speak or ask a question, please raise your hand and leave it raised until you have my attention. When voting, please leave your hand raised until I've called the vote. And note there's no chat facility between participants available in the Zoom meeting. If you need IT assistance, please let the Zoom host know or indicate to me if appropriate. Councillors, I will be permitting questions of officers prior to the commencement of debate on each item, and if I think sufficient questioning has occurred, I'll exercise my right under the governance rules to limit questions and ask for the debate to commence. Thank you. We'll now move to the consideration of reports. So the first report we have to consider this evening is 5.1, the Contract Award CT 2024-44, the provision of managed services providers for contingent labour. Councillors, do we have any questions for the officers about this item? Doesn't look like it. So if there's no further questions, we'll commence the debate. And I remind you, once we enter the debate, there'll be no further questions. Do we have a mover for this motion? Councillor Rennie, and do we have a seconder? Councillor Williams. Councillor Rennie, I'll go to you as mover to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. This item relates to a procurement item for the contract award for recruitment, training and associated services at discounted rates. Local governments have been using Procurement Australia, which Can I get the staff, please, supporting the recommended option? If you could put that in there, that would be great. Thank you. And so, as I was saying, this is for the provision of contingent labour. That means additional staff that are needed from time to time to fill gaps and make sure that all jobs get done. Up until now, council has been employing people, different sections of council have employed people in different ways. What this tender will do is to actually pull that together so that there is one recruitment pool from which council actually gets people when there is a need, and that could be because there are extended periods of illness or disruption in different services that require staff who are not employed by council. There's a really significant benefit to doing this in a more central way in terms of compliance with things like child safe standards, compliance with payroll and award wages and things like that. So it's pretty important actually that this is centralised and it's not left to different teams to try and negotiate with different staff. So I commend this to you. We've obviously got the paperwork which demonstrates the due diligence that's gone into the procurement process through Procurement Australia. It's a very rigorous process, and I think we can be confident that our council and therefore our community has the best value for money in terms of this contract moving forward.
Thank you, Councillor Rennie. And Councillor Williams, would you like to speak?
No, I have nothing further to add. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Williams. And do we have any further speakers on this item? No? Okay, we will go straight to the vote. So all those in favour? That is Councillor Newton, Councillor Dimitriadis, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Rennie, Councillor Williams, Councillor Hannan. All those against? And all those abstaining? Councillor Messina, how are you voting?
Sorry, Mayor, I had technical difficulties, so I didn't hear the debate. So I'm abstaining for that reason.
You're abstaining
for the debate.
Thank you. Okay, so that item is carried and we have one abstention from Councillor Messina. So we'll go on to the next item. That's 5.2, the migration public artwork artist selection. Councillors, do we have any questions of the officers regarding this item?
I have a
Councillor
question,
Messina?
Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor, my question is in relation to should we adopt the artwork that is a structure that appears to be like a playground? I use that word. How do we ensure that the children will be safe? And how does that affect the maintenance of the artwork, please?
Apologies, Mayor, but Councillor Messina was echoing, so I'm not sure if it was just me or other councillors that I just couldn't hear. I could hear her, but not clearly, and I'm just wondering if anybody else who might be online may not have understood what her question was. That was all.
Thanks, Councillor Williams. I found it a bit echoey too, but I think the gist of it was around safety when it's possible the structure could be climbed on by children, and I think perhaps maintenance. But I'll go to Leah or Kylie.
Through you, Mayor, I might ask Leah to start answering that question.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, thank you for the question, Councillor Messina. Yes, the artist has indicated that they are open to this being an interactive artwork in which members of the public may choose to touch it, sit on it, even potentially climb on it. With that in mind, we'd be working with the artist to ensure a full risk management strategy was put in place prior to it being installed. One element of that is that the artist has already indicated a soft fall base, as you'd see at playgrounds, would be placed underneath the artwork to ensure a safe landing. And we'd also put appropriate, warnings if necessary on any signage. As for maintenance, given the robust nature of the material to be used, we don't anticipate interactions from the public to have any implications on the maintenance of this artwork.
If I could just add the odd comment there. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Sally.
The interactivity was one of the predominant reasons why the panel really supported this artwork. and we compared the durability and the maintainability as part of the assessment process, and this was one of the most rugged and durable of all the 4 proposals.
Thank you. Councillor Messina.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if I'm happy to have we undertaken a risk mitigation strategy? We spoke about the ground level. I'm just wondering because I know that we've had an issue at a playground a few years ago where there was a child that was injured with one of our memorable places in the municipality. So I'm just wondering, could we amend the officer's recommendation with an item 9 to ensure there's a full risk mitigation strategy that assesses any OHS risk? And is that going to change the motion? Is it going to delay the motion? Only because I want to ensure that the children are safe. That's my OHS lens.
Through you, Mayor.
Kylie?
Yes, we could certainly do that. It may slightly impact the timing of the project, but yes, we can certainly do that, and we can work on some words for you now, Councillor Messina.
Thank you.
I'll do that for you now.
Just to validate Kylie's comment there. So we will be doing planning work, studies work, and assessing the risk is an essential component of that, which we have planned. So yes, we will definitely be progressing this.
Thanks, Kylie. Councillor Messina.
Does that mean we don't need an amendment on item 9 to the officer's recommendation? Can I just clarify that? Because I'm happy to proceed. I just wanted to ensure that the children are going to be safe.
Through you, Mayor, it's up to you, Councillor. If for transparency, you could have it as a separate motion, but by the same token, we'd be happy to incorporate that as part of the due diligence that the team will do that's in the recommendation.
Fantastic. I'm happy to ask if the officers can perhaps recommend an item 9, and I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation plus an item 9. Should I have support for that, Mayor?
Thank you. And Councillor Messina, could you check your sound? We're still getting an echo. It sort of sounds like there's 2 of you. Councillor Looms, did you have a question? Have we got any further
Also
questions?
happy to support it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just got a toddler in the background. But have we got any further questions?
No, I was just saying I was also happy to support it.
Thank you. So, Councillor Messina, you wanted to move an alternative motion? Have we got words?
Mayor, we haven't. I'm just waiting for those words. Perhaps we should, just a recommendation, if we don't have those words, maybe move to the next item to get the meeting going and then come back to this, Mayor. Just a recommendation.
I think let's just wait for the words.
I'll just be a couple of minutes.
Councillor Messina, while we're waiting, you might just want to check your sound or maybe leave the meeting and join again. It's very echoey.
Is this better, Mayor? No. Okay, I don't know. Okay, thank you.
Just send that through to you now, Councillor Messina.
Just waiting for Councillor Messina to return to the meeting and hopefully the sound will be better. So, councillors, just while we're waiting, we've now got a point 9 as an additional point. Request that council officers undertake a detailed risk and safety assessment prior to the installation of the migration public artwork. I've got Lena joining now. Councillor Messina, can you hear us? Sorry, everyone, we're just waiting for Councillor Messina to rejoin. Does IT want to reach out to Councillor Messina and just check in?
Mayor, just confirming that we're checking in with Councillor Messina.
Thank you very much, Emma.
Just got a message from Councillor Messina that she's having trouble.
I think IT is reaching out to her. I'm sort of I'm reluctant to restart because she wanted to move the motion, so I'll just give her a couple more minutes, and if we have to, we'll move on.
I think she was reaching out because I think she, as you said, she was wanting to move the items. So she's like, "Hi, now I'm having
Yes.
issues."
Yes, I understand that IT is speaking to her. So viewers and councillors and stuff, I do apologise for the delay, but I will give her a couple of minutes just so that she can move it. And if we can't get it back in the meeting, we'll give it maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And if we can't, then we'll get someone else to move the item. Councillors, I'm going to give it 1 more minute, and if we don't have Councillor Messina back by then, we'll get someone else to move the motion. Okay, so it looks like IT is still working on it. Councillors, I think we might have to move on. Is there another councillor who would like to move this motion? Councillor Williams, did you want to move it with the additional 0.9? Great. So we've got Councillor Williams as mover of an alternative motion. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Rennie. Councillor Williams, would you like to speak to the motion?
Through you, Mayor, before you enter debate, we just need the name of the artist and the artwork added at point 4.
Thank you.
If governance could do that.
That'd be great. Thank you, Kylie. Thank you. So Councillor Williams, will go to you as the mover.
Yeah, thank you. It's really sad that Councillor Messina wasn't able to move this item because I know that she's been extremely passionate about it. However, we're in a situation where we've gotten to this place and situation that we can actually have a migration, beautiful artwork that went out to the community. We asked for people to give us some feedback, and we had one particular outstanding person that won the migration public artwork, which has gone to James Nugent. For his work and entitlement is called Safety Net, and it reflects his experience coming to Australia as a refugee and a migrant, and that it involves, it's a fishing net, but the most important thing that I can tell you that I'm really excited about, that it's an interactive art piece. It's not something that you just look at, it's where people can climb on and have that engaging of being involved in the artwork that James has created. The artwork will be presented at the front of Council, nearly near the corner there of High Street, and I think it's important that we continually show that we are leaders in this area of how we feel about our diverse community. It's a wonderful way for our community to have that interaction. I think that it's, and even just recently that Council has won an award for Welcoming Cities, which shows that we are excellent leaders in this role of fostering and being inclusive, and we have those practices here in Darebin. As most people would know, that there's over 150 languages spoken here in Darebin, so we know that English is a second language for most people, and we are very passionate in ensuring that we continue to be their voice and show we understand their challenges of coming from other countries to Australia. And Darebin is one inclusive place, no matter what your background, your nationality, your sexuality, gender, or religion. So I think this is a wonderful piece of work. So thank you to our officers who went way beyond and looking for, I guess, different types of artists. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you, Councillor Williams. And I'll go to Councillor Rennie as seconder.
Thank you, Mayor. And can I just check that Councillor Messina isn't back in the meeting? Because if she was, I'd be more than happy to step aside. No.
Unfortunately not. I believe it's an internet connection issue. So we'll get her back as soon as we can, but she's not back yet. So Councillor Rennie, please go ahead as seconder.
Thank you. I would like to congratulate the successful artist, James Nguyen, for his success in being awarded the Art Commission to deliver the Migration Monument, and his work is entitled Safety Net. I would also like to thank and congratulate the shortlisted artists. It's a lot of work that goes into preparing further for a brief, and I hope that that process has been positive for them, notwithstanding that they haven't been successful. I certainly recognise that this entire journey that we're on is stronger for having the level of participation, which has been fantastic. And that includes all of those artists who submitted initially. There's been a rigorous process for the selection of this artwork, and that's involved looking at people's personal connection to the theme of migration, the creative engagement with the Commission's themes and the subject matter, artistic merit, the ability to develop concepts and communicate ideas aligned to the project brief, and the capacity to deliver an artwork at this scale. I think that that's a tough brief, and I'm really looking forward to the work. It's very timely given that we have become the first council to have been awarded the excelling status in accreditation as a welcoming cities community. And so in many ways, I think it's a celebration of that for us, and will be, you know, a very fine, I suppose, monument for the next council and for our community to see the value that we place on the diversity and on people's migration journeys. So I'm really excited about this project. I think the multiple meanings that could sit behind safety net are really exciting, and I'll be intrigued to see the work in progress. The fact that it's interactive and people can actually touch, engage, play, sit, enjoy the work in so many different ways, I think is a huge bonus. So thank you to the staff for all of their work pulling this together in very short time frames, and let's get it done and see what it looks like in situ. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rennie. Have we got further speakers for this item? Councillor McCarthy.
Thanks, Mayor. Sorry, IT is playing up a little bit, I think, for a few of us tonight. Look, I just wanted to echo the sentiments. Thank you to the officers for their work in steering this process. I think where we've landed is actually a really good outcome in terms of something which absolutely builds on the great work that the organisation, in partnership with communities, has done for a long time in terms of really celebrating the cultural stories that have made this city a really great and diverse place. I probably do want to just make one point though, that and take issue with the additional point that was added. I have every confidence in the great work and the rigorous work that our organisation does when it comes to any public art project, and so I think we probably run the risk by adding points around OH&S matters. Our officers do that well. They already do that as part of the process. We don't need to get involved in those sorts of operational things. They are absolutely part of the process. And so I just really want to give my vote of thanks to our officers for their work. Congratulations to the artist that was selected. Thank you to all those who also put themselves forward as well, and that were involved in the assessment process, but probably also just pay an acknowledgement that the work that our officers do is rigorous at every stage in these processes, and we should never sort of over question that at all. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. Are there any further speakers? Okay, I'll close off debate. I'm really excited that this has progressed so quickly and so well, and I really credit Leah, Sarah, and the rest of the team, as well as the community reference group that worked on this very quickly. I know that the team was really pleasantly surprised at how many people applied, and I think we should acknowledge that there were dozens of people that applied to be the artist for this artwork. And I want to give credit to James Nguyen as the selected artist. You know, I had no idea what the migration artwork might look like. But now that we have a picture of it, I think it's so suitable for Darebin. So, you know, we are a city that had refugees living in a hotel with barely windows that they could open. They were stuck there for, I believe, over a year. That's something that has been a big, one of the biggest challenges is certainly my time on council. And I think the fact that our artist has a refugee background and that we are very involved with the Back Your Neighbour campaign to welcome refugees, I think it's so suitable. For me, I think the fact that when we were briefed on this artwork and the fact that it's of a size that kids might climb on. I was asked today what Bryn's been doing lately, my son, and he's all about climbing. So I think there's a real opportunity for this to be a really interactive artwork. And similar to Councillor McCarthy, I have full faith in our officers that they will do a wonderful job with making sure that this is safe and secure. So big credit to the team, and I'm really looking forward to this going ahead in the heart of Preston. So We'll close the debate there. And councillors, I'll ask for the vote on this item. So all those in favour? That's Councillor Newton, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Reddy, Councillor Williams, Councillor Hannan. All those against? And all those abstaining? Councillor Dimitriadis. So that item is passed, and we will go, or carried, and we'll go on to our next item, which is 5.3, the response to the resolution of 26th of February 2024, the Northcote Aquatic and Recreation Centre grant publicity. Do we have any questions or officers on this item? Not seeing any. Do we have a motion? Councillor Rennie, are you moving the officer's recommendation? And do we have a seconder? Councillor Hannan. So Councillor Rennie, over to you.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll keep it brief. Look, this has come about as a result of a notice of motion that I submitted, which I put in really seeking to highlight the what I felt to be an unacceptable situation where being awarded a small grant, which was a very small proportion of an overall project, could enable the body giving the grant to dictate quite unreasonable terms in terms of acknowledgement. I think our community would feel that it stands to reason that the order in which participants in any project are recognised is commensurate with the investment that they've made into that project. That's not the way other levels of government have been operating, and the fact that a government can contribute 1% to an overall project cost, and in doing so dictate that they get to open it, be front and centre, be top of a plaque and all of that, I think is really a form of coercive kind of control over what happens in local government. That's the issue I sought to identify. I understand that we're operating in this environment. I'm a bit of a pragmatist in that way. I think it's important that our community is aware of that, because they should not be conned by, the bright lights and the ministerial openings and the plaques in terms of being aware of where investment comes from. Because ultimately, investment in facilities like the Northcote Aquatic and Recreation Centre are coming from our community. Our community has paid for that infrastructure through their rates, and our community should be acknowledged for that and should know that that type of facility has been built with their support and with the support of councillors who they've elected. Having said that, what this motion asks us to do is just note the conditions when we apply for grants, so that we can go in open-eyed. Often the fine detail of those conditions isn't available when you apply, it's available when you go to sign a contract, and I think that is something that we should continue having discussions about. That's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And I'll go to Councillor Hannan a second time.
I'll reserve my right. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Have I got further speakers on this item? Councillor Williams.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to know exactly in future if we do have plaques, because I haven't seen the one for this particular item. As us as councillors have opened the Northcote Aquatic Centre about where the plaque is. Maybe you might be able to give me a direction where that might be, Mayor?
Actually, don't know.
I was unable to cite it when I've been on site, that's all.
That's actually a good question. I might actually, I think it's a reasonable question. I know we're in debate now, but Kylie or Rachel, do you know where the plaque is at now?
Mayor, I was going to suggest we take the question on notice, given that you are in debate at the moment.
That'd be great. Thank you, Rachel. Councillor Williams will find out. Did you want to speak to the item?
I think it's important that when we are receiving funding that there is acknowledgement. However, it's important to know what that amount of funding and that we're upfront beforehand, not when we're open it that funding occurs or something happens, and therefore it sort of changes the guidelines of how we were going to design a piece of work. So hopefully in the future, when we're doing something like Reservoir Leisure Centre, which I know that we will be looking at redesigning and putting in place shortly, that we are able to get a larger amount of funding, especially from our state and federal government, particularly when other municipalities have received quite a large sum of money when it comes to Northcote Aquatic Centre. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. He's hoping. Do we have any further speakers to the function? No? Okay. Councillor Henry, I'll go back to you for an opportunity to speak as seconder.
No, thanks, Mayor. I think other councillors have covered it well.
Thank you. And then we'll close the debate there. So we'll go to the vote on this item. All those in favour? That is Councillor Newton, Councillor Dimitriadis, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Rennie, Councillor Williams and Councillor Hannon. All those against? And all those abstaining? Councillor Fitton, how are you voting?
Abstaining.
Abstaining, okay. That item is passed. So we will go on to 5.4, the contract award CT 2024-31 Fleet Services and Consumables 27060224. Councillors, do we have questions of the officers on this item? No questions. Okay, do we have a mover of the item? Do we have it, Councillor Hannon, and do we have a seconder? Councillor Williams, Councillor Hannon, I'll go to you as mover to speak.
Thanks, Mayor. So this is another procurement item. Could we get the suppliers listed there? Thank you.
Thank you.
And so this is a regular process, similar to the previous item. Actually, it's in council's interest to maintain a suppliers list rather than having to go out to a new process every time for standard things such as fleet management and all the sort of vehicle management that goes with that. This includes the disposal at the end of the life of the assets and going through an auction company. For example, it includes a carpool management system to facilitate the booking of cars and e-bikes. So there's been a proper procurement process to get the best value and also to look at the relative benefits of the organisations themselves and how they manage their business. And yeah, I think this is a great process and get the best value for council for these standard items. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hannon. I'll go to Councillor Williams as seconder.
Thank you. The whole point of having our contracts in this situation that we do ensure that they are up to standard, and this particular contract will be going until 2027. It will also allow another 1+1 as an extension for potential in years after that. It also authorises our CEO or whoever's delegate to approve those options in the future. It also this involves our fleet management service, our vehicle disposal services, our automotive accessories and spare parts, batteries and things like that, also tyres, our tools and workshops. We have a number of suppliers in those. So we have Smart Fleet Management, Pickles Auctions, Burson's Automotive, Castrol and Bridgestone Australia are the suppliers in those areas. So great work, thank you, and yeah, pretty straightforward stuff.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Do we have any further speakers on this item? No? Okay, we'll go straight to the vote. All those in favour? That councillors, are you voting for or are you voting for? Yeah, that's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. So we'll go on to the next item, which is 5.5, the Preston Central Activity Centre Advocacy Submission. Councillors, have we got questions of officers on this item? Not seeing any, so I'll go straight to debate. Do we have a mover for this motion?
May, can we kindly go back? I've got a feeling that some people may still want to have questions to our officers in reference to this.
Yes, we can check again for questions.
I guess mine will be,
Oh,
if
yeah,
that's
go ahead.
okay.
Yes, please.
With what community consultation will be going in the future in something like this, just for those who are listening online? And obviously we have some, I guess a big chunk of the Preston civic area is the Preston market. So I think there's a big connection between all that.
Good question. So I'll go to Vanessa to respond to Councillor Williams's 2 questions.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Williams, and through you, Mayor. We know that the state government is planning a second phase of consultation, and they have also established a community reference group. Councillor Williams, I can't share the specific details of how that the shape of that consultation yet, because the government hasn't yet announced it.
Okay, so
Councillor Williams.
So my follow questions in reference to it's saying an investment into a Preston Central Activity Centre. Now, from memory, when I went to VCAT fighting a major developer, there was different stages and different levels of activity centres. So you have your major activity centre, you have a minor activity centre, which might be like something like Oak Hill Estate area is a minor activity centre, and you've got Northland Shopping Centre as a major activity centre. What type of activity centre is this would be considered?
Thanks for your question, Councillor Williams. Through you, Mayor, Preston is considered a major activity centre. It's very strategic for Greater Melbourne, and that probably reflects why the state government has selected Preston as one of the 10 activity centres which are a part of the state government's activity centre program, which was announced as a part of the housing statement.
Okay, my follow question.
Go ahead.
I guess what was the timeline of what our minister, or possibly do we have any timelines in what our minister wanted to go ahead in doing this? From memory, I believe it was going to be full steam ahead. My biggest concern, will this be only just words, and will there be any action, or is this only a votes publicity game for upcoming state and federal elections?
Thanks for your question, Councillor Williams. Through you, Mayor, the Victorian Government's Engage platform indicates that the second stage of consultation will occur in July and August. So based on that, we would expect that it would be imminent. Officers are recommending a list of advocacy and outcome principles which would guide officers' submission should the process happen during the election period. And some of those principles are around process and engagement, to put forward that we consider a really robust community engagement that is welcoming and inclusive for our diverse community be an essential part of the decision-making process.
Okay, one more question.
Sure.
Sorry. In reference, you mentioned a reference group. Who will be, authorised in delegating who will be those on that reference group?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Williams. Through you, Mayor, the Minister and the state government have already established that reference group, and they had their first meeting in June, I believe, but I might ask my colleague, Hamish. Hamish, if you have any additional details you'd like to share about the community reference group.
Thanks, Vanessa. Yes, no, I believe that timing is about right, is my understanding. I don't have anything further to add.
Councillor Williams, I can confirm that I've been to one community reference group meeting, and I think it's okay to say it's likely there'll be another one, but we're rapidly heading towards caretaker period for council.
So there's nobody from the community that's going to be on it. It's just our mayor. Is
There's
there any clarification? Because I'm sure our community will be quite concerned about this. It's going to impact every single person in Darebin, but particularly every single shop and retail along High Street, as this will be impinging on their staff, parking, you name it. And it could involve closure because of tax reasons when you change a residential home to commercial, and now it's going to be an activity centre. So I think there's a lot of stages here, but we don't seem to have the proper people on this reference group. So I'm just a little concerned. Sorry.
Thanks for your questions, Councillor Williams, and through you, Mayor. So the state government ran a process and selected a range of community members who put forward to participate, and I'll need to take on notice the details of the members for you, but I can also share that Council, as a part of its own work on the Preston Central Structure Plan, have undertaken 2 rounds of community engagement, and of course we have shared that community engagement with our colleagues at the state government.
Thank you. I know what council does, and I know where our officers do, so thank you. I'm only concerned from somebody who doesn't know Darebin. So it's nothing to do with our officers. This is to do with if the minister has that choice of picking who goes on that reference group. That was a concern for me. That was all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I'll go to Councillor Messina. Did you have questions?
Yes. Can you hear me okay now, Mayor?
It's echoey, but I can decipher what you're saying.
Can you hear me better now?
Talk slowly, Lena, so it doesn't echo so much.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you, Julie. I really appreciate that. I've just done a search through you, Mayor. I've got a couple of questions. I've just done a search for the terms of reference for the community reference group. Does that exist? Do you know if that exists through you, Mayor?
Vanessa?
Thanks for your question, Councillor Messina. I do believe there are governing documents, but councillors, I will need to take that on notice and return to you.
Thank you. I just wanted to touch on, and I've got a couple more through you, Mayor, if I may. I wanted to touch on what Councillor Williams mentioned in terms of valuations. Given that of property valuations, given that this is going to be a major activity centre, I'm assuming Box Hill was also a major activity centre. Can you advise what other areas of Melbourne is deemed to have in the past be a major activity centre? Because I'd like to know, and visually, certain other members of the committee would like to know, what does it look like? What can it look like for that particular precinct in Preston?
Thanks for your questions, Councillor Messina, and through you, Mayor, we can share the other activity centres that are part of this program as well, and I'd like to ask my colleague Hamish if you could look up that program, and if you can share those 10 centres. While Hamish is doing that, I can share some of the Frankston, Epping, Camberwell.
The past ones, I'm sorry, Vanessa, I perhaps didn't ask the question correctly. Box Hill, I'm assuming, and it's my apologies, Box Hill, I'm assuming, is a major activity centre, and I know what the development has come into fruition since it was claimed as one. Can you give other examples of what Preston might look like, given that the state government changed it from a activity centre to a major activity centre like Box Hill? So Preston perhaps could look like Box Hill. Are there any other examples of Melbourne where there's a change?
Thanks, Councillor Messina, for clarifying that for me. And through you, Mayor, I might pass to my colleague Hamish, and councillors, while we don't know the details yet from the state government, we can share what Preston may look like based on Darebin's own work that they have done.
Okay, thank you. I have a few supplementaries, Mayor, if I may. Given that Preston may be deemed a major activity centre, what sort of heights would you anticipate? Not Darebin's proposal, but what sort of heights do you envision would take place down the precinct of Preston?
Thanks, Councillor Messina, for your question. I'd like to invite my colleague Hamish to answer that.
Thanks, Vanessa. And thanks for the question, Councillor, through you, Mayor. As you'll recall, the built form framework that formed part of the Preston Central structure plan that Council adopted, the draft plan that Council adopted in December last year. We're very confident that the built form framework, including a range of heights up to about 10 stories, controlled by a FAR control, provide the right balance between, I guess, preserving the amenity of the centre and providing capacity for additional homes in accessible location. When we have a look, I guess, at the activity centre program, which was announced through the Victoria's housing statement and anticipated around 60,000 new dwellings across the 10 centres that were nominated to be part of the program. If we had a look on balance at an average of 6,000 additional dwellings across those 10 centres, our proposed controls would comfortably accommodate that sort of additional capacity. So I guess although we can't confirm the answer to what the state controls might look like, I guess we'd be optimistic that the draft built form framework that you adopted in December provides the sort of capacity that the state would be looking for across the program.
Thank you. Councillor Messina, you can ask the question, but also could you mute when you're not speaking, as we're getting feedback from your
Sorry. Apologies. Yeah. So given that the proposal is 60,000 new dwellings for that area, how will council arrange, or will state government take responsibility for things like infrastructure, like water, for example, and our drainage?
Thanks for your question, Councillor Messina. I might pass to my colleague Rachel for this question.
Councillors, just before we go to the specific question, what I'd like to do is just make sure everyone's clear about the decision in front of Council tonight. So the report is recommending that Council establish an advocacy position as the basis of its feedback to the state government. So we're not in a position where we know what the state government's plans are, but we are suggesting that you might consider establishing your position, and to a large degree that's based on the previous work that you've done and which Hamish was talking about just before in developing a draft Central Preston structure plan. So the decision in front of you tonight is really about what you choose to establish as your advocacy position to the state government.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you. I just wanted to add to that. I understand that my questions were directed because I know what's going to happen here, and I did know the outcome of the answers I was asking. So my next question is in relation to what happens to property valuations, speaking wise, when it actually becomes a major activity centre. If somebody can indulge me with that answer, and that'll be my last question, Mayor. Just an assumption.
Thank you for your questions, Councillor Messina, and through you, Mayor. It's not possible to completely project what might happen to valuations, but we can share that an important mechanism that will influence potentially is the capital gains tax, and I can ask my colleague Hamish to share a brief overview of that mechanism.
Thanks, Vanessa. Through you, Mayor. Yeah, the windfall gains tax has been established to I guess, as a value capture mechanism, and it may be relevant in activity centres where there is proposed rezoning. So what the windfall gain tax does is a rezoning will trigger, unless it's specifically exempt, a rezoning will trigger a windfall gains tax event. What that means essentially is that an assessment will be made on the land value uplift that results from the rezoning, if any. And this could be a function of a new zone or planning. A new zone may allow greater development capacity, and this may have an uplift effect on the land value. So for a windfall gains tax event to result in a tax liability, a certain threshold for an increase needs to be reached. It's $100,000 threshold, which then triggers a liability, and it's a sliding scale from there on. So there's a diminishing percentage of liability the greater the value uplift is, but that's essentially how it works.
Thank you. Have we got further questions? Okay, it doesn't look like it. Thank you, Vanessa, Hamish, and Rachel. Do we have a mover of the motion? Councillor Rennie, and do we have a seconder, Councillor Williams? Councillor Rennie, did you want to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. This item is very important to the future of our community and to what it might look like. Some things are beyond our control, and that includes the state government declaring a number of activity centres, of which Preston is one right around Melbourne. Large numbers of people are going to move in, not just to our suburbs, but to suburbs all over Melbourne, because Australia's population is growing. That's something we don't have control over here at a local level. What we do have control over, and what we certainly want to maintain some control and a significant say over, is the quality of the type of accommodation that's built and the impacts on local amenity, not just for existing residents, but future residents. We want high quality suburbs with exceptional amenity, great housing, affordable housing for people. And these are the types of things that we are seeking to influence with this submission. So our advocacy picks up a number of factors which we believe are critical to making the most of this situation. We don't yet know the exact extent to which the state government's vision will become a reality. They've had a lot to say about the role of councils in approving planning permits and holding up development, but we know that there are very significant planning applications that have been in the pipeworks and approved for up to a decade that are not getting built. So whether this happens or not at the scale that is talked about, we don't yet know. But what we do know is that when this type of uplift occurs, when this type of growth occurs in our suburb, we want to ensure that the planning controls are there to make sure that it works well. We want quality dwellings, we want social and affordable housing, we want high quality design that picks up social and environmental benefits. We want to know that future residents aren't going to be beholden to high energy bills because places are poorly built. We want to know that people who buy apartments won't have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars rectifying cladding and other issues. We want to know that our residents in the future will have exceptional access to public transport so that our new suburban areas and even those existing are not car dependent. And I think, therein lies part of the conundrum and some of the benefit that could be there for existing residents, is that if we see this type of population uplift, we can expect and should expect much better public transport, which will be of benefit to everyone. We want beautiful civic realm. We want placemaking to occur when places are built. These are the things that are dealt with in our advocacy position, and I really commend them to everyone. And I thank our staff for all of the work that they've done. Certainly been one of the things I've most enjoyed over my 8 years on council, is really getting into the nuts and bolts of thinking about civic space and placemaking and the impact that our built environment has on the quality of our lives. We want to make sure that that's there for all residents now and into the future.
Thank you, Councillor Rennie. Well said. And we'll go to Councillor Williams as seconder.
Thank you. When I came onto council, we had the Preston Civic committee, and myself and Councillor Messina were on it at the time when she also came onto council. And we spent years in what the area of Preston would look like. I think that the ministers decided to choose Darebin particularly is because we'd already done such a huge amount of work in this area for many, many years, and thanks to our officers, current and previous officers. I think it's really important that, yes, we do need housing. Yes, we do need better infrastructure. Yes, we do need, we are having a growing population growth out this way. Yes, we are so close to the city and close to the airport. We do need all that. And what this does is actually allows us to be one of the first off the rank. Hopefully that we will get it right because of the work that we've already done from previous years, but ensuring that we have community consultation all the way through. It's our community that needs to have a voice, not just the minister, not just the council, it's our community. They are the voices. They know what's best. And the people that's going to impact the most will be the Preston Market, who have already gone to court, as you know, and we're still waiting on what grounds that the minister wants to be able to build on the Preston Market. So I guess they're waiting on that also. So hopefully all of this is a holistic approach where it will take all of this part of Preston and it will ensure that it will work together by having all the Lego pieces put together, and you'll have a whole new city, which will be the high activity centre. Let's hope that it will be one that will be beautiful, that will be well built, and that will have the proper infrastructure put in place that will be pleasing for all that live in it, shop, work and play here in Darebin.
Thank
that's all I
you.
have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Do we have further speakers to this item? Councillor McCarthy and then Councillor Messina.
Thanks, Mayor. I think it's probably just worth mentioning as well and reinforce the point about the importance. The importance, I think, for council's advocacy to really focus on that touch point with our community at the prior to any decisions being made at the ministerial level. And I think it's if we put ourselves in the shoes of the decision makers in this process, which is not council, in fact, it's actually the minister on behalf of the state government. It is a pretty bold thing to consider approving a set of arrangements which actually have some immediate and potentially long-term impacts. So purely from a risk mitigation point of view, it makes sense to have that touch point with the community and with council and to ensure that that occurs. There's probably another element to this, though, which I think we hold really dear as a council, beyond the issues around affordable housing, public housing, spaces and places for our community, which is actually about the fact that the things that we are building and the decisions that are being made now have an intergenerational impact. And so it's actually really important that the frameworks that are actually being adopted at this point in time have a view to those policy settings. And the obvious one here is that, you know, we need to move towards housing that is appropriate for people, healthy for people to live in, low carbon. And thinking about this whole area, it should be an exemplar in terms of how people can live well together and also live in as part of a moving towards a net zero future. So I just would absolutely implore the government to really hear this opportunity to engage with us, engage with our community, and obviously building good practice in this process. There's some really exciting stuff happening in Victoria. Preston is part of that. It's really clear, but it has to be done well. It has to be done properly. So a deep breath is probably not a bad idea.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy, and we'll go to Councillor Messina.
Thank you, Mayor. I understand this piece is our advocacy piece. Councillors have done a lot of briefings, a lot of discussions about what we want, what we would like for our community in terms of the living space there in Preston. And we do want good quality homes. Yes, we do need more housing, but what I'm concerned about, and that's why we've opted for an advocacy piece, is that we're going to get another Box Hill in the centre of Preston. Yes, we do need more housing. But there's that fine line, isn't there? And we've just spent years fighting the high density living that was proposed at the Preston market. I hope that's not going to go to waste, and that perhaps I'll be wrong in the future. I just hope that the high density living that's going to be proposed, that's going to be delivered, is not going to create another Box Hill in the middle of Preston Central.
Thank you, Councillor Sina. Do we have further speakers on this item? No. Okay, I'll close off the debate. Very happy to support the submission. Really big thanks to our planners for being part of this process so well and doing such great work. I'm very proud that as Darebin, we are always pushing for mandatory affordable housing. We push for inclusionary zoning, and it's something that I really wish the state government would allow to just run with. Because for me, I'm a little bit worried about the pace of this. I'm a bit worried about community not being as involved as they could. And council, we are, heading very closely towards caretaker period and an election now. These are big changes for Preston. Councillor City, you were asking before, they are talking about potentially 6,000 apartments here over 10 sites. We've worked closely with some of the other councils to advocate already. Hume's been leading that, which has been good. But yeah, I'm absolutely worried about the pace of this. I'm worried that community might not be heard. Certainly the community reference group meeting that I went to, there was a lot of concern about there's a lack of open space in Preston Central already. And so there were really big questions about not just open space, but also infrastructure. And if the state government is asking us to have this much density, how will that be to measure it with investment in infrastructure and open space? So there's definitely a lot to work on with this, and I really appreciate the officers' work on their advocacy position and very happy to support it. So we will close the debate there, and councillors will put this item to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. So we'll go on to the next item, which is 5.6, property matters, sale of minor assets at 4-1 Thurza Street in Preston. Do we have any questions on this item? No, then we'll go to debate. Do we have a mover for the motion? Don't put her at once, Councillor Rennie. And do we have a seconder? Councillor Williams. Councillor Rennie, I'll go to you to move.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll keep it brief because we've got a couple of these matters tonight. This relates to a parcel of land which is surplus to council's requirements, and we know that there is a statutory process that we have to go through. The first part of that process is that we give public notice of our intention to dispose of the parcel of land and invite submissions from the community. Based on those submissions coming back to us, we then make further decisions. So it's a two-step process that we've seen many times, and most often the outcome is that one of the adjoining property owners purchases the land. It creates a small revenue stream for council, but also means that we're not left with very small parcels of land that are not adding anything to public amenity and that council has to maintain. So I commend the motion to everyone and think we can proceed with confidence with commencing this process.
Thank you, Councillor Rennie. I'll go to Councillor Williams as seconder.
I wonder if Councillor Williams said that she didn't have anything to add, but we didn't hear because
sorry. Councillor Williams, do you have anything to add? No, thank you. Do we have any further speakers on this item? No, we'll go straight to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor, also that's carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor. So that motion is carried. We'll go on to 5.7, the sale of, property matters, sale of minor assets, 27 George Street reservoirs. And do we have any questions, Councillor Williams?
Oh, no questions. Sorry about before, but happy to
No
move the
problem.
item.
I'll just check for questions. No questions. So we've got Councillor Williams moving. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Rennie, Councillor Williams, I'll go to you to move.
Sorry. Thank you. Just like the previous item, this is a right of way that council has no use for. Therefore, it's obviously come up to council because either one party or two parties have had interest to the purchase of the right of way. Council will involve ensuring that either one party or both parties, whether it's split, will go forward. Council needs to ensure that we do advertise this through the appropriate websites and due to our governance laws that we need to follow and process. It's a straightforward process that ensuring that if we do have any objections, then council will then go to the next step from that. But usually we do not. And it's a pretty straightforward process that then it gets added to the person's title. So that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I'll go to Councillor Rennie as seconder.
Nothing to add, thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Do we have any further speakers? No, we'll put this item to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors, for moving through this quickly. So we've done 5.7. We'll go to 5.8. The property matters leasing a part of Bundoora Park for the construction, operation and maintenance of a telecommunication monopole. And please note there is an amended officer's recommendation. Do we have any questions on this item?
Mayor, I think it might be helpful for Lee just briefly to explain the nature of the officer's amendment.
That would be useful. Thank you, Rachel. I'll go over to you, Lee.
Thanks, Rachel, and through you, Mayor. We would like to just make a minor correction to the officer's recommendation. As it reads in the report, point 1 states that council has previously resolved at meetings in June 2022 and September 2023. They should both be 2022. So it's just a typo. It should be September 2022, not 2023. Just wanted to update that for the record.
That's fine. Thank you, Lee, for that clarification. Do we have any questions on the monopole? Councillor Rennie.
Mayor, I wonder if the staff could briefly outline the nature of the changes to the proposed lease in comparison with what we agreed to in 2022.
That would be useful. I'll go to you, Lee.
Certainly. Thank you. And through you, Mayor. The substantive changes, Councillor Rennie, are to the leasing area. So the original lease was for a parcel of land 5 metres by 2.5 metres in size. What the officers have since realised is there's actually 2 parcels of land. An extra 4.5 metres squared is required for the supporting infrastructure for the telecommunications pole. It's also an opportunity to update some of the airspace issues that had arisen. So we've obviously leased the oval below it. What we are trying to do is make sure that we clarify any issues with the airspace that's directly above that, where the fixtures and the light tower would be.
Thank you, Lee. That's very useful. Do we have further questions? Councillor Rennie.
Further to that, thank you, Mayor. I wonder if the staff could just let us know whether there are any resource or financial implications of leasing a more significant parcel than what we anticipated. Thank you.
Lee.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you for the question, Councillor Rennie. No, not any additional costs to council. We are seeking to keep the agreement, the financial market value the same. There is an opportunity in there to review that market value every 3 years as part of the original contract. So that would remain in place. It's simply adjusting the total area that's required.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any hands, so we'll close questions there and we'll go to debate. Do we have a mover for this item? Councillor Rennie, and do we have a seconder? Councillor Williams. I'll go to Councillor Rennie. Or both of you doing the heavy lifting. I'll go to Councillor Rennie as the mover.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, we have as council already considered the matter to the extent that we were happy for this type of leasing arrangement to take place. Our community does depend on telecommunications. And I think what is noteworthy here is that because of the nature of the change, there will be a level of community consultation so that the community can have their say. And if there are any concerns from the community, I would imagine those will come out at this point in time. This lease arrangement is worth just over $27,000 to council. That's each year. That's obviously money that's helpful in our budget, and that will be reviewed as we go along. But at the same time, with this type of infrastructure, we need to make sure that it's not impacting on anyone else's ability to enjoy the space. And, you know, it's not hard to imagine a situation where we have conflict between telecommunications infrastructure and flying footballs, for example. So these are the type of things that do require consideration, and that's why we will have the follow-up community consultation. But I think it's obviously a step that we should take, and therefore commend the updated recommendation with that date fixed. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Rennie. And I'll go to Councillor Williams as the seconder.
No, I have nothing further to add, Mayor. I believe that we have a huge agenda, so we'll just keep continuing on. And my fellow councillors already mentioned the most important parts of this agenda item. So thank you.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Councillor Williams. And I would recommend that if seconders don't need to speak, that's fantastic. So thank you. Do we have any further speakers? No. Okay, we'll go to the vote for this item. So all those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. So we will go to the next item. That's 5.9, the Fair Access Policy Roadmap Recreation Facilities, the recommendation for the minor update policy. So do we have questions for officers on the roadmap? I'm not seeing any hands. So do we have a mover for this item? Councillor Dimitriadis, and do we have a seconder? Councillor Rennie, I'll go to Councillor Dimitriadis as mover.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be supporting this option, which is the officer's recommendation. However, I am concerned that this, along with other items, has come to our attention through a special meeting, which does not allow the community to ask questions or to put in submissions on this topic or any other topic that we're discussed here tonight. Furthermore, I make note that councillors have only been given the final 400-page agenda yesterday to look into these matters. I personally have been fighting for equal access to facilities my entire time on council, and unfortunately many of those times my amendments for equal access have not been supported. However, I think it's and I'm glad that this policy is being updated and amended. I think it's also disappointing that Darebin has still not achieved gender equality as per the report, and I hope that the next council actually prioritises this important item and truly delivers for the community. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Dimitriadis, and I'll go to Councillor Rennie as seconder.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I hadn't planned to speak, but given the negative tone that Councillor Dimitriadis has adopted, I think it's important to say that this council has been incredibly committed to achieving gender equality and a leader in this space. No council in Victoria has got there, and that's because every council is grappling with the historic imbalance in infrastructure investment for sporting clubs. We have, over my term in council, upgraded multiple sporting facilities. That is required. We have not had the financial means to do all sporting facilities, and I note that this council unfortunately decided not to proceed with the upgrade of the lorry oval, which would have, which I certainly supported, as did some of my colleagues, which would have resulted in better female-friendly facilities at that location. We will continue to work really hard in collaboration with the state government to make sure that all women and girls, and in fact people of all genders, have space to change, to play, to meet in sporting facilities where they feel safe and where they can enjoy sport, because we know how good it is, not just for people's physical health, but for their connection to community. And it is such an important thing. So I think we should celebrate the work that our clubs are doing to achieve gender equality. We have, certainly with some of our clubs, absolute leaders in this field. I know that many clubs are waiting for upgrades and that this council is incredibly committed to achieving them. I'm very pleased that we've got a couple on the agenda or partway through that process at the moment, and we'll continue to roll those out. It is not possible to deliver every upgrade in the order that clubs want, and we do have a framework for working out where to put the investment first. I support that because I think it's transparent and helpful for clubs to have a sense of what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reddy. Are there further speakers to this item? Councillor Williams.
I just want to say thank you to our officers, and I do understand to a point where Councillor Dimitriadis is coming from. However, the goalpost has changed over the years due to pre-COVID. We actually, before Councillor Dimitriadis was on this council, we had a very healthy gender equality between male and females playing, and including people with disabilities and people from all nations. The sad point is that after we've come out of COVID, we don't have that equality anywhere near as what we had pre-COVID. And any reference to our facility upgrades, sadly, this council has inherited 1970 type pavilions, just like many other municipalities. However, you've got Whittlesea Council and other places like that, lucky enough to have newly built pavilions, even though they haven't been a long existing municipality as opposed to Darebin Council. In reference to why we haven't upgraded the facilities to I guess exactly the way we wanted to and in the time frame is due to we've had to invest in other areas also that things have just changed over a period of time where groups of clubs have increased over here or decreased over there. We ask our clubs to ensure that we like to know how many people are playing, what backgrounds, what nationalities and what disabilities. I assure you that if any club is as inclusive as much as Darebin is, I have no idea, but I believe that we're right up there in reference to ensuring that no matter what your background, your nationality, religion, sexuality, that we have a team here for you that's playing in our groups here in Darebin. I've got people that I know that come from Melton that play here in Darebin because of that inclusiveness, despite our clubs needing upgrade. It's because of what the teams and what the clubs bring together, and it's not always about the facility and change rooms. Yes, I'd love to ensure that they were all upgraded, and we are working towards that, but we ensure that we have a safety net here for people playing.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Are there any further speakers? Councillor McCarthy.
Mayor, look, I wasn't going to speak to this, but I think it's really important that we come back to what the report tells us. And the report does tell a pretty incredible story. I'm not interested in people's sort of, pre-election speeches and the like. I think what we need to recognise is this is a report that's talking about what has happened, the work that has been undertaken over a long period of time. We have seen an increase and significantly so across a range of sports and across a range of facilities and parts of Darebin. And that's largely due to both the proactive policies that have been put in place, and you see the evidence of that in the report with an increase in participation across a range of facilities and a range of clubs. In one case, I think there's a figure of 45% of participation by women and girls in some of our facilities, which is a huge increase on where we were. I can tell, I would remind councillors that it was only in 2010 to 2012 when we were seeing participation in group-based sports activities in Darebin around 10%. Those numbers have lifted. I've had the privilege of being involved in the largest women's and girls sports club in all of Darebin. I've a child who's played for 9 years and has benefited from the the investment that council's made, but also the mentoring that council has done for other clubs in encouraging. And I can tell you, even in the sport of soccer, there's been a huge increase in the number of girls playing, not because of what the Matildas have done in terms of raising the profile, but because council has said, if you're a club that wants to occupy facilities and use facilities in the city, you need to drive towards gender equity in your programs and activities. That's happening. I think it's also worth recognising that not in this current term, but in the previous term of council, 2 significant decisions were made that have led to $100 million worth of investment in facilities, with the major facility being the Narrandjeri Stadium, delivering and focusing on increasing women and girls' participation. I'm pretty frankly surprised that councillors might miss the importance of those investments, but also the intergenerational aspect and the change that's been made. So I want to thank our officers, but I probably also want to thank our community and clubs and advocates who've been pushing for this stuff for a long time. We're seeing the benefit. Yes, there's more work to be done, but we've got to move away from the parochialism of talking about what I didn't get in my ward. We need to get past that stuff and focus on needs-based. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. Have we got further speakers on this item? No, we'll close off the debate there. I think I'll just add that I think we're leading in many ways in this space. Gender equality is one of my core values, and I have conversations with clubs all the time who are so keen to increase women and diverse participation in their clubs. So I think we're very fortunate to have both the community that we have in Darebin that is so inclusive, and to have our staff working so hard on making sure that we're increasing those numbers. So well done to the team. So we'll close the debate there and we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. And we will go to the next item, which is 5.10, the upcoming procurement ×2 of the tender evaluation process options and authorisation to advertise a tender. So councillors, do we have any questions about this item? Councillor Dimitriades.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Through you, I'd just like to ask about page 100 of the report refers to a company that council may have a contract with as a possible, as possibly meeting the criteria. Will the options presented in the report still allow council to contract with this company?
To Rachel, and councillors, please do be careful of confidentiality. If we do need to move into camera, we will.
So the all the options outlined in the report would use a fair and open probity process, and so the assessments of any applicants through that process would take place in line with how those options are set out in the report, councillors.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions? Councillor Dimitriades.
Yes, I do have another question about the report. I note that the options presented impact companies who have a direct affiliation with the social outcome principles. Has an indirect affiliation with these principles been considered?
So, councillors, certainly the report in front of you tonight proposes that that's how your resolution would be interpreted. That proposal is really in line with how procurement processes work generally, in that our procurement processes, we really need to respond to the tender put in by the legal entity that puts it in. And so that's sort of the fundamental basis of most procurement processes that council operates to meet its obligations under the Local Government Act, and that is how we've proposed that your former resolution be interpreted tonight.
Thank you. Have we got any further questions? Councillor Dimitriades.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one final question in response to option 1, which I note has 2 different an A and a B. If it's subsequently been determined that a tenderer has completed the declaration inadequately or falsely, will there be any ramifications?
Rachel?
So there's no process that would reevaluate. So this in both option 1A and option 1B, the process relies on that self-declaration. There isn't a sort of subsequent verification step involved. So I wouldn't expect that there's a process that would identify if there's been, if someone hasn't operated in good faith. What I would say is that any company operating in Australia does have obligations to operate in good faith. And there are a range of declarations through the tender process to confirm that that is being done. So broadly, council has due diligence around that question, but neither of those processes propose a sort of verification step.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Okay, we'll close the questions there and we'll go to debate. Do we have a motion? Councillor Hannan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation, the insertion at point 6 of option 1B.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Messina, and Councillor Hannan, I'll go to you as a mover.
Thanks, Mayor. So this item follows a previous decision earlier this year in which we resolved to review Council's social and sustainable procurement policy, particularly in the context of the terrible conflict and abuses occurring in Gaza, Israel, and other places around the world. It was noted at the time that Darebin already has a strong policy in this area, which includes sustainable procurement, defined as involving decision-making that has the most positive environmental, social, and economic impacts possible across the entire life cycle of goods, services, and works. And there's also already included the principle of respect for human rights, the rule of law, and international norms of behaviour. However, it was not clear how to operationalise these principles in a practical sense. This is a really complex area. There are global supply chains, and there are real challenges in being able to identify companies that may be linked to such abuses. At the same time, we have a need to progress with essential procurement, and we have legal requirements to consider a number of factors, including getting best value for our community. The proposed option here is a pragmatic one. It'll apply the spirit of the previous council resolution while progressing with essential procurement processes and referring a holistic review of the social and sustainable procurement policy to next year. I'd really like to commend our expert, hardworking, and always impartial staff for helping us work through these issues and providing advice to continually improve our approach in this area. And I'd like to commend this recommendation to Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hannan. Councillor Messina, would you like to speak as seconder?
No, Mayor. I'm happy to leave it as it is.
Thank you very much. Have we got further speakers on this item? No? Okay, then we will close the debate and councillors will put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. So we'll now go to the number 6, which is urgent business. Are there any items of urgent business? No. Okay, so we'll go to item 7, consideration of reports considered confidential. Council says one confidential report to be considered this evening. It's the item of the planning matter, the receipt of legal advice. So we'll close the meeting to the public. In accordance with section 66(2) of the Local Government Act 2020, council may resolve to close the meeting to members of the public to consider the item designated confidential in accordance with section 3(1) of the Act. Councillors, is there a mover of the recommendation to close the meeting to the public? Councillor Williams, and do we have a seconder? Councillor McCarthy, and all those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. So thank you very much to members of the community who've tuned in via the live stream this evening. Please note the live stream will not resume after the confidential meeting has concluded. Councillors, I'd like to remind you to please ensure you're in private office for the duration of the confidential meeting. As per our governance rules 11.1.8, councillors must ensure they're in a confidential environment away from all other persons when dealing with any confidential agenda items. And if sub-rule 11.18C cannot be met, the council must leave the meeting and not participate in the confidential item. I'll now declare the meeting closed to members of the public at 7:43, and I request officers to cease the live streaming and the recording.